go to C. Pursuant to Resolution 117-19, the Town of Shandaken Town Board does hereby call for a public hearing and special meeting on the tax cap issue. Local law number 2 to exceed the New York State tax cap to be held on Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019 at 1 p.m. at the Shandaken Town Hall, 7209 Route 28 Shandaken, New York, to hear all those in favor and against such action.
Thank you. Roll call.
Board Member Alba, Board Member DeSclafani.
Here.
Board Member Storms, Board Member Van Blarkum,
Here.
Supervisor Stanley.
Here. All right, again, this is the public hearing portion, so all are welcome to speak. This is really regarding the tax cap. In order to exceed the tax cap, which sadly, again, we have to do, is mostly due to personnel costs. There are no real contractual increases throughout the entire budget. It's a lot to do with raises, bringing people to make sure that they stay basically minimum wage rates or ahead of that. Also coincides with healthcare cost increases, retirement cost increases, and other increases, including compensation and such that go along with increases in salary and wages. So that's the reason that our budget's going up again. Again, it's about 3%, 3.09% all said and done between all the budgets. So with that, if you have a tax assessment, without a change in your tax assessment, if you paid $500 in town taxes last year, you would pay an additional $15.30 or something like that. So with that, I'll open it up for the public. So have any comment?
I'll consider public.
I'll go first.
Okay.
All right. Supervisor Stanley and Town Board. So I have several notes here that, and I'm just going to speak about the police department budget directly. So, I'm actually starting my 24th year with the police department. The last 5 as the police chief. Since I've taken over as police chief, I have never been over budget. So, I conferred with retired Chief McGrath last night, and I spoke with him. And I had an integral part of the budget even before I was the chief with the department. And I couldn't remember a time that we went over budget even back then. And the only time that we could come up with was Hurricane Irene and Superstorm Sandy, which we were overages on our overtime costs, which we were reimbursed with. So since I've taken over, I've been able to upgrade a lot of our equipment at no cost to the town taxpayers through grants and also surplus supplies from various other police agencies. One of the first things that I was able to get coming in was I was able to get a police car donated from the MTA police, great condition car, had like 70,000 miles on it, fully equipped. The only thing I had to do was put my computer in it, a modem, and get a stripe to say Shandaken Police on it. Which leads me to the computer equipment in the cars. So the average to install our mobile data terminals, it costs roughly between $10,000 to $12,000 for each car, with a monthly fee, obviously, that we pay out of our budget. So for the most part, since we went computerized and have had computers in our cars, I've always been able to get surplus equipment from bigger agencies. Thank you to the Sheriff's Office, thank you to the Town of Ulster Police. They upgrade their stuff periodically. I was able to upgrade my stuff just a step behind what they had. So that, in and of itself, was probably a $30,000 savings. I'm currently working on taking all that old equipment that we have in our cars with a $10,000 grant from the Senator's office. I have 3 laptops coming, scanners, printers, and all the necessary equipment to hook it up, as well as I just secured 4 modems to save the town about good $4,000 to $5,000 from the DEP police. They just upgraded their modems last year, 2 years ago, and now they're actually going to a newer technology. So fortunately for me, I got some great contacts down there, and I was able to get 4 new modems, about $1,000 a piece. One of the other things that I did when I came in was I upgraded all of our duty weapons. This was all covered via a trade-in program that our dealer Amchar has, as well as the offset cost from asset forfeiture. If you don't know what asset forfeiture is essentially money that comes back into the town for our participation in Urgent and it's really drug dealer money. So they have a surplus of money. When we arrest them, we're able to seize that once we prove that it was used for drug. So I upgraded all of our weapons, no cost to the town. The next thing I did was I upgraded all of our bulletproof vests. They have an expiration date. They really have to be changed out every 5 to 7 years, depending on the company. I upgraded all of our vests, even for our new members. That was paid for via grant from the Bureau of Justice Administration, as well as offset the cost with asset forfeiture money. The computer in the station, coming in 2014, the computer in the station I think was older than me actually being in the police department. So that was upgraded as well, and I'm currently looking at possibly upgrading that, once again with asset forfeiture money. So let's go to salaries. So salaries for a part-time police officer in the town of Shandaken right now, on the average, is $5 to $7 less than any other town in the county. And I'm only comparing ourselves to towns like Plattekill, town of Olive, and the town of Shandaken, who are also part-time agencies and carry a lot of part-time members. The town of Plattekill, at their higher end of their pay scale for their part-timers, depending on how many years you've done with the department, are making upwards of $30 an hour as a part-time police officer. Full-time police officers, we have 4 positions for full-time police officers. Those guys and gals are making $10,000 to $12,000 less a year than any other police officer in the county, which forces me to seek out younger guys that are looking to get, guys or gals looking to get full-time. So they come here, they work for a year, and then they take off to bigger agencies where they're walking in the door with an immediate $10,000 raise. The police chief. I compared my salary to other part-time police chiefs in the county, similar towns, and those guys are making $7,000 to $8,000 more a year than what I'm making. And I'm only giving you this for information. Not once has any member of the police department ever come to you as a town board and complained about their salaries or what they're making. Over the last couple of years, we've negotiated to take that 2% increase with very nominal changes as far as any financial stuff goes within the contract itself. As you know, we are contracted to have 4 full-time police officers, and there's a minimum number in there. I don't know it off the top of my head for part-time police officers. Which leads me to the car. So like I said, I was able to surplus a car. I attempted to get a second one. The MTA is not doing that program anymore. Too bad for me. So yes, we did in fact purchase a car last year. As everybody saw, our older police car that we had was involved in a car deer accident. Thankfully, the insurance company totaled it. It had about 110,000 miles on it. So we're getting full replacement value to replace that car from the insurance company. So my fleet's in pretty good shape at this point, once everything is ironed out with the insurance company. So let's talk about why we should have a police department in the town of Shandaken. So as you guys know, my full-time job is with the Ulster County Sheriff's Office. I'm actually in my current position, I'm part of the administration staff down there, so I have an integral part of their budget process as well. So we are looking to add 2 new deputy sheriffs this year, which we have been approved. We're just waiting for the county legislative body to approve the final budget from the county exec. So with that being said, even though we're adding 2 people, 2 new deputies, that really doesn't do anything to the road patrol, in that one of those deputies is going to a specialized unit that Sheriff Figueroa has created, the Oracle program for the opioid response team that we're putting together. Also, with that being said, our call volume is up considerably over the last couple of years, to the point where we were prioritizing calls on where we're going to send deputies first. And I say that because town, we're lucky in that we do have a police department, and if you don't know, we're a 7-day operation, and we're 20 hours a day. So we're only lacking police coverage in the town of Shandaken for 4 hours. So I took a selection of calls, and I just did like an average response time from where the Shandaken car was within the town responding to a call and where an outside agency was coming from. So our average time to get into any type of call was about 10 minutes. The average time for a sheriff's car or a state police car to get there was considerably more, upwards to the effect of 30 to 40 minutes. So with that being said, there was a particular call a couple nights ago in the town after our card went off. The closest car available for that call was in West Hurley, and they ultimately had like a 40-minute response time to this call within the town of Shandaken. To me, that is not acceptable. But during that time frame, you go from having the state police, for example, they're required for their contract that if they have 4 guys working out of the state police Kingston and barracks, they're required to double up. So you no longer have 4 cars, you only have 2 cars. The sheriff's office is looking to go to something similar, and it's strictly for officer safety reasons. So, one of the other things that I've done is I've never said no to a request for having a police presence at a town event. That has come to extra cost in my part-time budget, but I feel as though it's necessary because we live in a society that just because we say we live in the town of Shandaken doesn't mean that there's nothing going on here. And quite frankly, if we have that mindset, it's going to come back to bite us. You look at some of these small towns like Newtown, Connecticut, nobody ever thought that that was going to happen there, very prominent area. Or even the Garlic Festival out west where there was something bad that really happened. Nobody ever thought that that would happen. Festival of the Voice, an amazing event that brings a lot of people to this town, thousands of people. This year in particular, I had numerous town police officers there for a variety of reasons, traffic control, security, etc. The sheriff's office had nobody to give me to help me out with that event. It's the Fair Week, a bunch of other events that we had doing, so we had nobody from the sheriff's office to be able to come and help me with that. I reached out to the state police, one of the guys, one of the supervisors in Kingston. I said, hey, can you send me 2 troopers for the weekend? Mainly just Saturday night from this time to this time. And the response I got was, I don't have anybody to send you. I'll have the postcard drive through town a couple times. Which he did. But he literally drove in Bridge Street and back out to 28 by the Eagle. So, as you all know, we do have a school within our town. The police department, they do walkthroughs of the school. They're there through the parking lot periodically. That's important to me that we have some type of presence within the school. I'm a firm believer in the SRO program. I actually run our program in the sheriff's office, and I'm an SRO trainer. So for me to get police in the school at a young age is very important, and it seems to be working out really well for us. So let's talk about some crimes that have happened within the town in the last year that generally don't go public. It's not something that I want to talk about at every monthly town board meeting. I don't think it's necessary. But within the town of Shandaken, within the last, I believe, 12 months, we had a home invasion with a gun where some drugs were stolen. After there was a murder in the town of Ulster of a gang member. It turns out that not those gang members that were intricately involved in that murder, but an associate of the MS-13 gang happened to be living here in the town. Once some of our investigators from the gang unit started nosing around a little bit, this person just kind of disappeared, probably back to New York City. Bel Air Ski Center. Bel Air Ski Center has I'm just going to use rough numbers here, 5,000 to 6,000 people, influx on a busy weekend. I, as the police chief, am responsible for the safety and security of those people, and just covering that with 1 police officer just is not enough. So we try to have at least 2 police officers working every weekend during the day when we have a huge influx of people to our town, which I love, by the way, and I think it's great. And the more people that come in, the better. So, when I hear terms like grossly over budget, I find that offensive because I take great pride in my job and my work, and that is totally inaccurate. I have never grossly been over budget. As a matter of fact, I've never been over budget. I think I know maybe what was being discussed was an expenditure last year and moving around money. It was a figure of, say, $25,000, which we ended up recouping $30,000 of that, so we still have a surplus at the end of the day. The car. So it was brought to my attention that the police car is something that is a huge expense, which I totally agree with, and that it's something that I should be putting in my budget every single year. I would love to do that. Do I think that's fiscally responsible? I don't. Do I need a police car every year? I don't. I'll give you a little history on police cars. When I started here in 1996, we used to get a new police car every single year. And that police car was bought out of the Good Neighbor Fund. I understand that we don't want to use the Good Neighbor Fund and deplete it. Great idea. However, I think our form of purchasing police cars now, when I need one, I get one. Which, by the way, contractually, we're obligated to replace a car when it gets to $135,000. The members of the department have ultimately agreed on the last two replacements that have been way over that they would forego that $135,000 with the understanding that we would get a car within a relatively short period of time. So it's a little give and take. So if you want, I will budget for a car every year, and that'll give me a little cushion of about, let's say, $48,000 to $50,000, because that is what a police car costs, coming to me fully equipped in the dealership. Lack of fiscal responsibility was the other term that I heard, and I think I've done pretty well in keeping within my budget, number one, and also the amount of equipment that I've been able to bring in over the last 5 years that have essentially cost the taxpayers little to no money. So I am always open to suggestions on how to run my budget. I by no means am a budget expert, but I can tell you that as my 5 years as chief, I've never been approached by a town board member about my expenditures and what I'm spending on a monthly basis. I've never been questioned about my payroll. However, if there's questions, I would love to sit down and just discuss it, so it doesn't have to come out in a public meeting such as this, or for any other type of event that goes on. And that's all I have. You guys have any questions of me?
No, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I'm here to speak of the ambulance department budget, and comments made about that department. We too have done more with less. We've done a whole lot more with less. We have received help from our friends, donations of equipment. In a region where we continuously hear about lacks of organized emergency response systems, we here in Shandaken are fortunate to have a reliable, well-developed, and award-winning 24-hour, 7-day-a-week advanced life support ambulance service, protecting our town and our visitors. All 119.8 square miles of it, which is a feat in its own. Of all of the hot-button issues that we've heard, particularly lately in the election season, from candidates and incumbents alike, Airbnbs, attracting new families, sustainability of the town, new families, nurturing our newcomers. That word sustainability, that resounds as one of the most important factors, it seems. Access to healthcare as well. And I know Councilwoman Storms did a lot of work on that, trying to entice doctors into the healthcare facility that we have on Altamira Drive. And it was tough. Access to healthcare is a huge feature of an area that influences people's determination of calling somewhere home, opening a business, opening their homes to someone temporarily. Now, following comments that have been made within the last week, it seems that might not be at the forefront of everyone. I know it sounds crazy, to the point that it was said that not only mismanagement of the ambulance department was apparent, but also proposed drastic cuts to the ambulance department that would affect not only safety, but the livelihoods of 20 employees, many of which are behind me right now. And looking at our 2018 financials, which I believe were the ones that were spoken of, overages were secondary to our gross understaffing, which we've been telling the town we need to work on, and we're still working on. Namely secondary to our inability to entice more employees, which never appeared. And we're still grossly underpaid secondary, or compared to other agencies around us. $5 an hour to be exact in our neighboring areas, in every layer of our care that we're giving, EMT, driver, paramedic. Overtime costs associated with a full-time individual coming offline attributed to that 2018 overage. That's unavoidable. People get hurt, people are unable to recertify, people have disciplinary action. Minimum wage increases, which are a good thing, also had a trickle-down effect. Some was used to cover equipment costs, as our more with less mentality had resulted, and has resulted again, in vehicle issues. That vehicle expenditure was drawn from the wrong line last year. All of these issues contributing to that figure. However, the sentiment resounds amongst us that if you have a solution to our woes, please, please, let us know how you could decrease budget by a proposed $100,000, all whilst attracting new employees and maintaining the level of service that the town of Shandaken has and has had for years. I may have a lot of answers, but I certainly do not have that. So any questions from the board?
Nope.
Thank you.
Sir, Mr. Long.
Hi, Supervisor Stanley, town member report. I don't have a sheet to read off, I'm going from the heart. Been in this town for 30 years, fire department 30 years, the ambulance 27 years. We talked, the other night, we talked about economic growth in the town. How can you have economic growth in the town when you have nothing here for them? You don't have jobs here. Then the other night, we talked about cell towers. We've been talking cell towers for 30 years, for 20 years. You want to put them on the firehouses. We could have had cell towers down the corner of 28 if it wasn't for Kathy Nolan suing the town every time somebody wanted to put a tower on their piece of property because they're going to make a little bit of money.
Please keep it to public hearing on the budget.
Okay.
Tax cap.
I'm just touching base a little bit on what was said the other night. All right, getting to our ambulance, going back to the ambulance thing here. We have people that work 24/7. They also are, one of the problems that we have where we run into the overtime is we can't get people to work because they don't want to work over the 40 hours, some of them. Some of them can't work over the 40 hours. So we have to accommodate to fill the shift. I'm not leaving an empty shift. I would not leave an empty shift for the EMTs or the drivers. If that shift needs to be filled, we're going to fill it. It's detrimental for the town. Okay? You used the service before. We've all used it one time or another. Okay? And by telling us that you're going to possibly cut back $100,000 and maybe lay people off, when we can't even get people, to cover some of the shifts, and that's after making numerous phone calls. It's not because they don't want to, or because they can't, or they have other jobs. Okay? So, you know, again, being in the town as long as I've been, my grandfather used to work across the street here, just over here at the garage. He died in the garage. That's back when they had the hearse with Jeannie Gormley back in the old days, back in the 60s, okay? It's just unacceptable for what you're asking for. And hiring new people is not the answer, because you can't get nobody to come here. How many times have you put the articles in the newspaper hiring people and nobody shows up?
Not enough.
Nobody. You know why? Because they don't want to do it no more. Do you know why they don't want to do it? Because there's no money into it. We talked about other agencies. He touched a little bit with the other agencies with the pay rate. Mobile Life, out of the city of Kingston, is down 40% with their manpower. They now have 4 full-time ambulances within the city of Kingston and Ulster Rose, and the medics are in flight cars. When they get dispatched to West Shirley or Olive, no units available. Now, you know where the agency's coming from? It's either coming from Woodstock or us, and that's if we're available, or it's coming from Dutchess County, across the river. You talked about it years ago about, well, you know, you guys are getting expensive with your budget. You know, we might have to look out other places to go. Well, I can assure you right now, if you go to Mobile Life, they would turn you down. And if they didn't turn you down, the budget's gonna be $800,000 or better to cover this town 24/7 with one ambulance. If that's what you want, then go for it. But we do a great job of what we do right now. Appreciate what you have, and don't take nothing away.
Kind of wrote this down. So I had come ready to read an article that ABC News had done, a story on which headline read, "What if you call 911 and no one comes?" It went on how a man in his 40s went to play in a regular softball game they have weekly and was lucky to have his cardiac arrest on the field where multiple volunteer EMTs from the dying local volunteer ambulance squad that's barely afloat. Considering the treatment he received and the nearest hospital is 60 miles away from their small town, he's alive. And he attests that to those EMT providers being there at the right place at his wrong time. After reading the article, it made me think. The article was written about a small town called Hebron, North Dakota. I would rather share a story that's a little closer to home. In a small town of Olive, New